it's terrifying, like sitting there in front of a doctor and they don't know what the hell's going on with you. That is the most terrifying part of it. I didn't want to meet anyone. I didn't want to do anything. I dropped everything, and just the absolute terror. Like I just remember being absolutely like, if you were to watch like the scariest movie ever, and you're stuck in that, like that feeling, it's just debilitating.
Hey everyone, I'm Sean O'Connor, author of the Depersonalization Manual, and today I'm speaking with Peter Dunn, 29 years old, from Scotland in the UK. Starting in 2018 after a panic attack, Peter had a crippling experience with depersonalization disorder, which badly affected his ability to work and socialize. Peter also had a baby daughter in the middle of his experience with DPDR. He worried that he couldn't make an emotional connection with her, and as he said to me during a coaching session, "I want to get out of this for her sake." And thankfully, Peter has since made a complete recovery and is with us today to tell us about his experience with and recovery from depersonalization disorder. Peter, you're very welcome to the channel. Thanks for being with us today.
No problem.
Great to have you on the channel. Peter, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so it's just a little town outside Glasgow. I stay with my fiance, Charlotte, we call her Charlie, and said my baby daughter, Emily, who she turns 2 at the end of this month. I currently work in a bakery just in the town that I live in, and I also have my own Amazon business, which is very interesting.
That's great. That's great. What's it like being a relatively new dad? How's fatherhood working out for you?
Nothing could really, you can't really compare it to anything, to be honest, and you can't like put it into words. It's the best and the hardest thing I've ever done, but yeah, it's definitely worth
it. Yeah. We were saying before the interview, I was sorry that Ireland had kicked Scotland out of the Rugby World Cup last weekend. Yeah, but the balance of that is that Ireland are not in the European Championships this year in the football. And
yeah,
it looks like Scotland are a good chance.
Better than football for once, so that makes a change.
Yeah. It all balances out.
I've only ever seen Scotland in one major tournament, so I want it to be a few more.
Yeah, for sure. So, Peter, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with DPDR and how did it start for you?
So, started for me way back in 2018 it was. So, always remember it was November 2018 because I'm a Celebrity was on the TV, and I've always hated it ever since. Yeah, so it was November 2018. That's when I had the panic attack, and I just felt like everyone knows the feelings of like being spaced out, like you're in the Matrix sort of thing. I don't know if beforehand a few things triggered it, because I know it can be triggered by drugs and things like that, like weed. But for me, I've never touched anything like that. But I've always been quite an anxious, quite a depressed, like in that moment, like in the lead up to it, like I was always questioning, like, am I good enough? Like, what job? Like, is my job good enough? I'm a bit of a failure, that sort of thing. So I honestly, like, hand on heart, think that was maybe like the pinnacle sort of thing, like, if that makes sense. But having said that, at the time, I had absolutely no idea what was going on. I thought I was losing my mind. I remember going to bed thinking, right, if I can just get to sleep, I'll feel better, like when I wake up. But as you know, the first thing you do when you open your eyes is you're tuned right back into it. You're checking up on it. So that just started the full process. So immediately I phoned my work and I was like, no, I just said I wasn't well, and I think I was off for about a month. Phoned the doctors, got a doctor appointment, all the usual stuff. They said I had anxiety. I remember my mum was there and she said, like, oh, you'll be fine in a couple of weeks. It's just anxiety. And I was like, I wasn't buying it. Like, there's no chance this is just anxiety. Like, But the longer it went on, I was like, is this what real anxiety? Because you hear people with anxiety and depression. So I was like, is this what depression feels like? I know that sounds ludicrous, I know, but so maybe I was thinking like, am I depressed? So whilst I was off work, I got counselling. Again, I didn't know at this stage that it was depersonalization. The counsellor, I explained everything, like sat down, I said, didn't feel real. That went down well. They looked at me like I was from outer space. But still, I went through everything there. Like they tried to look back at like any sort of like trauma in my childhood and stuff like that, but never really had anything like that. So again, it just sort of added to the fuel to the fire. Like I was on this crazy search to find out what the hell this feeling was. But going back, I thought maybe this is what anxiety, depression feels like. So I decided to leave my job. I worked in Next, like the clothes shop. And I'd always wanted to work for ScotRail, which is the train service in Scotland. So I got a job there. That made me feel even worse because the job, as you know, you need to distract your mind. But I was just basically checking tickets and selling tickets, and that was absolutely brutal because it just had a free range to run wild in my mind. So again, I went through. They wanted me to stay, so they tried to get me counselling. I was like, I've already done counselling. Like, you don't understand. I don't feel real. But it's so embarrassing because no one knows how you really truly feel. So then I was off work again, so I actually resigned. So I was unemployed. And that's when I kind of went down the wormhole of researching, and I came across, I think it was, is it the forum, the DP forum, which at the time, like my heart, like it was like the penny dropping, like, oh my God, this has a name. But it's not great as well because there's people on there that have had it for 10, 20, 30 years and they're absolutely, like I was absolutely spooked by it. Also, I done all the mad tips and tricks and how to get out of it. Like I remember I have that, that the app Strava, which records like running and cycling. So I would go like 30-mile cycles every day because someone said, a few people had said cycling is the cure. Mental. Like looking at it now, yeah, that's crazy. But at the time, you're willing to do anything. And me and my partner, Charlie, we laugh about one scenario. Like it was someone mentioned chicken stock, like chicken stock cubes, like that gets rid of the dizziness feeling. So every night before bed, I would drink a litre of chicken stock. Absolutely mental, but that's what you're willing to do. It's unbelievable that it's not recognised, is it? But I think slowly it is beginning to get a bit more recognised. But it's terrifying, like sitting there in front of a doctor and they don't know what the hell's going on with you. That is the most terrifying part of it. Eventually, I came across, because you know what it's like. You're spending hours and hours a day researching, and I came across yourself. But this was in the early stage when my head was gone. Like I didn't know where I was, what was happening, and I didn't quite believe that it could be so easy just to distract. I didn't believe that it couldn't be that easy. Like it feels so big and enormous, and there has to be. I wanted a quick fix. You know what I mean? I wanted a drug to take to like make me feel better, but actually antidepressants. So I was put on antidepressants, the sertraline, and that makes you feel well. It made me personally even more spaced out. And I think, well, what does an antidepressant do? It numbs you. It gets rid of your feelings. Like I know it works for some people, but for me personally, it added to it was just another thing to deal with, sort of thing. Like, so again, I just went. I didn't deal with it properly. Like, I wasn't really dealing with it, and it wasn't until 2021. So this is a good 3 years later. So I've been just going round and round and round, not really dealing with it. It's when my daughter Emily was born in 2021. I was like, right, I know I've had brief spells of relief when I distract. So why aren't you doing that? Like, you've been round and round and round and round and round explaining it. You, like, one of the biggest things for me is talking to myself. Like, I had to go over everything, had to understand what it was in order to get better first. So I do understand what it is, but I became obsessed with what it was. So it was almost like I had the instruction manual in my hands on how to get better, but I wasn't reading it. I was obsessing over the little things, whereas I'm not actually putting it into place. So one of the biggest things was just not repeating anything in my head, because I had a bad habit of going, right, depersonalization is a symptom of anxiety, blah, 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 blah. Like, that would just be, and my brain would trick me like, right, Peter, you have to tell me that. But now I just go, that is what I do. I go like that. And then it's like, right, go and do something else, because nothing can be solved down in your head. Like, you just have to move on. You can't let it have power over you, because it will control you, it will grip you if you allow it to. But yeah, you have to distract, you have to keep busy. And I don't know, maybe Emily being born, I was so preoccupied with looking after her. So you don't have to go out traveling the world. Like, I was literally looking after my daughter, and I got better. Like, that's it. And I said to myself, right, I'm going to work. Because I got another job in the local bakery. And when Emily was born, I started my Amazon selling as well. Like, because I've always been interested in that. I've always been interested in reselling and eBay and stuff like that. So I came up with my own brand and doing quite well, which is, I never thought I'd say. But yeah, so we're now at a point where I can almost laugh about it, which sounds harsh to people that are struggling, but you'll look back and it's not worth your time and effort. Like, nothing can be solved in your head. Like, that's all I can say. Just do something else.
That's so great to hear, Peter. And especially when you get that bit of distance after it, that you can kind of look back on the experience and be like, okay, that was tough, but it's so not frightening to me now that I can literally laugh about it. And that's a really wonderful thing. Yeah. Peter, can you just to rewind a little bit, can you tell me a little bit more about the initial panic attack that triggered it? Because I think you said, as far as I remember, you were shopping, you were out with your girlfriend or something. Is that right?
Yeah, so we were just doing like our weekly shop, and I remember it wasn't so much when we were shopping, it was when we were walking back, things just looked a little off and just a wee bit funny. And it wasn't until we got back to the flat that it was just like absolute terror. Like, I've never had a panic attack really, but that was probably the first time and only time. And it was literally like a switch going off. Like, what on earth? Like, not even what on earth. Like, there was a lot of swear words in there, to be honest. It's absolutely debilitating. Like, just like everything. Like, you've walked in. It's like the episode in The Simpsons where he like comes out into the real world, but it's vice versa. So I'm like in The Simpsons.
That's That's a really good example. Yeah, from
Yeah,
the it's the Treehouse of Horror episode. Yeah,
yeah.
or it comes into the real world. That's a very, very good example. Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So at the start, was it kind of primarily visual stuff you were experiencing, Peter? And
yeah,
how was that
it
for you?
was. Yeah, just like everything felt unreal and just out of sorts. Like, and just the absolute terror. Like, I just remember being absolutely like, if you were to watch like the scariest movie ever and you're stuck in that, like that feeling, it's
Mm.
just debilitating. Yeah. I just remember looking out the window because we were in like a tenement flat at the time in Glasgow and looking out across the road and like at the cars, like what on earth? Like how is that car moving? Where is that car like been manufactured? Like just everything. Like you're going into the finite details of everything. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then over the, I guess over the course of the experience, Peter, I know you've mentioned a few of them, but can you tell us more about specifically the symptoms that you were experiencing? What were the
Yeah.
hardest ones that you would have had?
So definitely like the existence of things, like just going into absolute detail. Like I'd even be googling like how the Earth spins and I know that sounds mental, but like
No, no,
just, let's
not
be
at
honest,
all.
let's be honest, that is an intriguing question even today. Like when I'm
Yeah,
feeling,
yeah,
see when you're in that mindset, oh my god, like
yeah.
you're just gonna freak yourself out completely. Um, yeah, just the reality of things. That was my main one. Like I was okay. I didn't really have it with people as such. Like how are you a pet? Like I know people can have that. It was more objects and the feeling of just like being in a building. Like how is this building upright? Like this is like how is that a thing? How is this a thing? Just yeah, it's debilitating.
So it was primarily the kind of the existential thoughts for you.
Yeah, oh, 100%, yeah. And then probably, I mean, definitely, sorry. I was definitely depressed. Like I was very, don't like to say it, but I was probably suicidal at times. Like I didn't want to live. Like I couldn't live another day, month. But as it went on, because I had it so long, like I became even more like depressed and like is this just my life from now on, sort of thing. But you just have to change your relationship with it. That's the only like that. Even me saying that, like I'm just gonna have to live. That's all you have to do, really, and go and do something else. Don't let it define you. But symptoms wise, yeah, embarrassment. I was very embarrassed. I would get very angry because to get through to people, I couldn't get through to anyone. No one understood how I felt. And I was so sad, anxious, and like embarrassed talking to my parents about it, talking to friends. Like, I didn't want to meet anyone. I didn't want to do anything. I dropped everything. It was so embarrassing. Like, sitting across from your employer saying, I don't feel real. They're looking at you like I don't like using it, but like you're a lunatic. Like, it's horrible. But yeah, that's mainly it. Yeah.
Yeah. There's and it's something that people say to me all the time, and it's something I definitely experienced was a profound sense of depression. But what what it felt like at the time was that it was a kind of it was okay, I'm going through this awful thing and now I've got depression on top of it. And I've
Yeah.
never really, I mean, I felt kind of, I've had tough times before, but I've never felt like an acute sense
Oh,
of like bleak. There's
yeah.
nothing, like my future is just this gray kind
Yeah.
of blob now.
Everything's gone. Like how, like all the joy and big events that life is meant to bring, I'm just going to miss out on it. I'm just going to have to take a back seat and just waste away. Basically, is this me sort of thing? And I was jealous. I was jealous of everyone else that didn't have it. Like how are these people walking about not seeing what I'm seeing. Like, why is it me that has slipped into this other dimension? Like, yeah, and it's just, yeah, horrible.
Yeah, it is. And I guess one of the things we realize as we recover, though, is that sense of depression that you feel is like it's warranted, like it would be kind of strange if you didn't go through an experience like that, and especially at the stage where you don't understand why it's happening, you don't know that there's a name for it, or that you have even the possibility of recovering. Like when you're going through that stage of it, like it would be weird if you didn't feel a sense of depression about the situation,
Actually.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, recovery kind of gives us a lot of space to have a better context on the experience, because when I look back on it now, I just have a sense of, I guess, just compassion for what I was going through. And it's like, that was a horrendous thing, but like of course you were feeling depressed because you're in your mid-20s, like all your whole life's ahead of you.
Well, that was another thing, yeah. So at the time I was 25, so that's like, well, it's like to say it like when you're in your 20s, you're meant to be having fun sort of thing, but I know that's not entirely true. But that's what's drilled into you. Like, you should be going out enjoying yourself. You'll never be 20 again. But I was missing out, and yeah, it was just really awful. But it happens for a reason, and if people were educated on it, like that first visit to that doctor, if she told me, she wasn't wrong in saying it was anxiety, but if she said, "Oh, dissociation," yeah, just keep busy. Like, that would have solved everything. Like, I wouldn't have had to go in this wormhole of 5 years. But I'm, in a weird way, I'm thankful for it. Like, when you come out the other side, life is like, it's night and day to what you've been through, and you can really appreciate even the small things of just sitting in the garden having a cup of tea. Like,
yeah, absolutely. And there's such value in finding somebody, or just finding an explanation, because you feel like you're in this, like, you're just kind of being buffeted by the storm, or like you're in a pinball machine and you're kind of, okay, I have no idea why it's happening. I feel like I'm in a different dimension. I can't look at a car without like being freaked out about the nature of its existence, and et cetera, et cetera. And all that you need at that point, or what you desperately want, is for somebody just to kind of stop the ball on the table, just stop it, and then point you in the right direction and say, okay, this is what this is. Just go over there. It might take a bit of time, but just go over, but start moving in that direction, and you'll be okay. And just that alone takes so much of the chaos out of it, But and my story is very similar to yours as well, Peter, in that, like, I was 25 when I developed it first. I went for so long without figuring out what it was. And then eventually I found out through Googling that this is what it was. And also, just like you, found all the kind of the contradictory stories then saying, "Oh, but I've had it for years," and that absolutely freaking me out as well. When you said as well, Peter, that you were trying to find a medication for it, and you said it really well. You said, like, I want a drug to take to fix this, and it's like, I want to find the thing that will switch this off. And as if if you had hay fever, you take an antihistamine and it basically switches that off. So all I have to do is find out what this system is, take the right medication for it, and that'll switch it off. But because this isn't like a system in terms of like your antihistamine system would be, but it's a thought process and it's a habit of thought. So there is no just medication to switch it off, just like there's no medication to make you change diet, or there's no medication to make you go to the gym or to listen to different types of music, because you are changing a specific habit of thought. And it makes sense. But at the time when you're going through that, it just feels like, well, this is this other section of the pinball table that nobody can seem to help me with. There's nothing holding me in place. There's nothing to guide me. And how do I even start to get out of this?
Exactly. I think that's the hardest. Like, you need to take the first step, and it's going to be terrifying at first, but you have to get out there and just live your life. And slowly it will get easier. And then eventually it will go, because you're nipping it in the bud. You're not giving it any room to breathe. You just have to keep going. And then, like, little things, like, I'm a massive Hibs fan, and it's a team in Edinburgh, and I hadn't been to a game since it started.
Peter, you're going to have to explain for our international audience who
I played Edinburgh. We were the first team to have floodlights in the whole world.
Whoa!
There we go. There's a lot.
There you go.
Good question. So I hadn't been to a game since the beginning. I was like, right, I need to go. I hated it. Like, it was really difficult, but I kept going, and my mind, right, focus on the match, even though we're dreadful. Focus on the match. That was it. Yeah, just get yourself out there and do things, and that's it.
Yeah, and also you kind of have to push back against your initial instinct, which is like, because your initial instinct kind of feels like, well, I'm sick. So, like, in past instances when I've been sick, like I've had the cold or the flu, I have had to square myself away. I lie in bed for a couple of days. I eat food. I drink liquids. I get my strength back, and then I go. But with that kind of mindset, just keeps going indefinitely unless you stop it.
Yeah, I had that mindset for 3 years. I wanted people to feel sympathetic. I couldn't help myself. I was on the phone to my parents, and I would mention it every time. And that just keeps it going. You have to stop. You have to stop mentioning it. You have to just, that is part of the condition, going on about it and researching it. You just have to stop. Yes, it's difficult, and you feel awful to begin with, but just get out and eventually you will get better.
Yeah. So how long did you have the condition all in all, Peter, roughly?
So 2018, and it was probably the beginning of this year that it truly felt great relief from it. So would that be 4 and a bit years?
4.5 years, yeah.
Yeah.
Was. What would have been your lowest point in the whole experience, Peter? Is there a specific experience or day that sticks with you?
Well, to be honest, there was quite a few. A lot of the time I felt like I was never, like we've talked about, like I was chasing a drug that would just heal me instantly, but that was never going to happen. I remember in the early days, I remember phoning Charlie and saying, this was after I'd finished work, I was like, I don't know what to do. I genuinely thought I was dying. I thought I had some sort of tumour. I don't know, like, I had absolutely no idea. So I took myself to A&E. Like, I walked to A&E, stumbled, because I was completely out of it. And they checked me over. They checked, like, my heart rate and took bloods and everything. And they were like, no, everything's fine. And I remember specifically, like, the doctor came in and he was like, are you anxious? And I was like, what? Like, it was absolutely, yes. Like, my anxiety was through the roof. And I just got up and left because no one knew. I was like, there must be something wrong with me here. Like, and I remember walking back to the flat and just floods of tears. Like, I'm just going to be like this forever, fighting against this awful feeling. Yeah, and just so upset, like, in bed, not getting out of bed, just in floods of tears. Sounds like depression, doesn't it? But at the time, you're gone.
Yeah.
So yeah, that.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. There is a very common kind of point that a lot of people who develop this have, and it is that point at which like you think that there is no, like, there is nothing.
Yeah.
There's nothing to even. There is no first step to take.
Yeah, that's it. Because your brain's been rewired to think about this, and you have to. It's up to you to put it back together.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, you're trying all of this kind of like quite random stuff. Like,
that was my biggest problem. It was like a scattergun approach. Like I was trying this. Like it was, you have to drop all that. Like just go against what feels normal and do the easy thing and go and try. It doesn't feel right at all, but that is the only path you can take. Like to live your life as normal. Not just, I mean, don't just sit in the house and play FIFA. Like get out and live your life and keep busy. That's all you can do, and it's going to be difficult and it's going to be hard, but just keep going, persevere.
And the thing about the trying like the chicken stock and cycling.
Yeah, I know it's hilarious looking back.
Yeah, but you know what as well? I mean, I think that kind of sometimes what happens there is that, like, there's people out there who they may start to see results, but the results might be happening simply because, I don't know, like maybe they've had a kid like yourself, or
they've done that themselves.
Yeah. So they've just kind of given themselves the chance to engage on other things long enough for the symptoms to start to reduce.
Mm-hmm.
But then they'll say, like, oh, but I went for a cycle earlier. Now, the fact that they went for a cycle is really good, and because it gets the endorphins going, you're going to be sleeping better after it. You'll feel better. You look better. All the rest of it. But then the mistake is that people kind of jump to the conclusion that, like, oh, well, what you need to do is cycle to recover. And it's like, no. I mean, it's a beneficial thing to do, but we try again. It's this thing of like trying to find a switch or a cure, an immediate cure that'll happen overnight, and it's just like, oh, just try the combination of these two things or these three things, and that'll work, and that'll work for you. I did that for God knows how long, and again, it's this idea that someone described to me recently as being like a recipe. It's like the recipe for recovery is out there, and it might require a specific type of stock. It might require an X amount of cycling, this YouTube video, that movie, and this book. And then if I try all those together, then I'll recover. But I'll do them today and I'll see if I'm recovered tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, is that you're setting yourself up to check to see if you've recovered tomorrow, and you've made all this evening about DPDR.
Exactly. And I would spend every night doing that, like for the majority of a year, just every evening. I don't know how Charlie's still like not even that, like the patience of a saint, like, because she actually like she's had anxiety her whole life as well, obviously not dissociation, but she could sort of understand where I was coming from. So that was a big help, like having Charlie by my side, like, because I don't think everyone would be as like would wait around, so to speak, for that long. Like if I just knuckled down in the first, like when I came across what it was and what to do, I would have got out of this a lot sooner. But it is what it is. It's you learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, learn from your mistakes, and also we only make the decisions that we make with the information that we have.
Yeah.
So like for you, like hammering into chicken stock, or for me back in when I first got DPDR, what it felt to me was I was exhausted and I felt like I was in a dream, so I needed to wake up. So what will I do? I'll drink industrial amounts of coffee until I do wake up.
Yeah, which you can kind of see why, but of course it's not very beneficial.
Yeah, but and like looking back at it, I'm like, no, Sean, don't drink the coffee, you know. But at the time, I'm like, but I feel tired. I need to wake up. What do I do? What do I do when I'm at school or at college and I feel drowsy in the morning? I drink coffee. Try to drink coffee. That's what I'll do. Just making the best decisions we can with the information that we have. But as soon as we change that information and get the good info, that's when we start to kind of like point ourselves in the right direction. So Peter, you alluded to it briefly earlier, but can you tell us more about how your recovery actually started and how did that process feel to you when it did start?
So I put a lot of pressure on myself to get better before Emily was born, which, as you know, putting a time frame on it doesn't work. So after Emily was born, didn't really have as much pressure to get better, which was helpful. So that sort of, when Emily was born, I basically like, I have to get better. Like, I'm not going to let me stop her from going to the park and playing with her, and I don't want her to miss out on anything because her dad doesn't want to go out. Basically, he's scared to walk outside. So I had to, but that shouldn't have been the catalyst. Like, you should do it for yourself because you have to. But for me, yeah, like after so many years, that was the catalyst, and just keeping a routine. Like, if you have an iPhone or like a smartphone, go into the notes section, and I would write out Monday through to Sunday, and then like your like spreadsheet. So I would have morning, afternoon, evening. Fill it in. What are you doing every day? So you've got something to do, basically. Even if I've got a day off work, make sure you're busy. Like, you're going to have good and bad days where it drifts in, but just go and do something else. Like, keep busy. I started going to the gym and running, which really helped. Like, just having that as part of my routine. Because don't get me wrong, looking after Emily, some days it can be quite boring. Like, just sitting in the house all day watching like Cocomelon and Peppa Pig. Like, if I'm able to get better sitting watching that, then yeah, you can as well. Like,
very good.
But yeah, just have a routine in place, keep busy, never say no to anything. Like, get out and live your life. That's all I can do, and it's helped wonders. And a big point as well: stop talking to yourself, which might sound a bit funny, but like I was saying, I had a big problem with going over everything, and so I go, no, go do something else, because whatever is coming into my brain, I do not need. I do not need to go over everything. I don't need to go over that.
You mean stop talking to yourself in the context of anxiety, like
exactly.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Because I would have to go over. So if I had a DP thought, like, well, that doesn't feel real. I remember talking to you about it, like I had two paths to go down. I didn't know whether to, do I stop and engage with this? Do I explain it? Why was I even asking you that? Of course I don't. You're not going to sit and roll out why that feels the way it does. Like, the reason there's a symptom, like, you don't need to do that. The easier option, and the only option you should be taking, is to go and do something else. So just don't talk to yourself.
Yeah.
Which is to be honest, it was very difficult to begin with, because you've got in the habit of going over everything and engaging with that little voice in your head. But you have to just mute it. You have to. Like, but yeah, in the beginning, you have to push by it.
Yeah.
And let it sit there.
Yeah, it's interesting the thing you said, Peter, as well, about the you know, that before your daughter was born, you kind of felt like, oh, the date's coming up.
Yeah, I put a lot of it. Like, I was like, I have to get better before she's born. But I was thinking too much about it. So that just hypes you up that, like, you cannot put a time frame on it. Like, you can't, because then it's a race against the clock. So my race against the clock was Emily's due date. So
that's exactly what it is, a race against the clock. And and again, it feels like it makes sense to do that because you're giving yourself a goal. You're giving, so you're in this space where, like, there's nothing to point towards, there's nothing to move towards. So we start giving ourselves these milestones, and we say to ourselves, okay, well, the birth of my daughter, it's what, 4 months down the line, I will be better by then. But the problem is, though, is that it's not helpful, because it's the same thing. I always say this to people, it's the same thing as, like, if you've got a song stuck in your head and you want to get rid of it, you wouldn't say to yourself, I have to have this song out of my head by 4:00 tomorrow because I've got a meeting with the boss, and I will make sure it's gone. So what do you end up doing? You end up checking in on it over and over again, on the hour, every hour, and then you get more freaked out as the time comes up and it's still there. And it's the checking in on it that's causing it to persist. Yeah. It feels very counterintuitive to not do that, but that's what we have to do with all types.
Another point along that sort of line. So I put a time frame on me passing my driving test. So I said, like, once I'm cured, I'll do my driving test. But when Emily was born, I'd done my driving test. So I passed while having depersonalization, which is quite crazy when you think about it, because one of the hardest things is driving. So that just goes to show you can do anything with it. Like, it's anything, you can conquer anything with it. It will be by your side to begin with, but just keep going.
Yeah. And as you do these things, as you conquer these things, that's what demonstrates to your brain that the DPDR is not relevant. It doesn't matter if it's there. You can do everything you want to do anyway. So then your brain says, okay, so why do we have this thing around? If we're not in danger and we can do what we need to do, let's get rid of this. Also, to be fair, I, like, years before I had DP and DR, I failed my driving test 3 times. so now, if that had happened, Oh, DPDR didn't stop me from failing my driving test. Like,
they can't be using that.
Yeah.
In the beginning, to be fair, because I wasn't used to driving, it was a good distraction, because I was so het up about the actual driving. I was so, like, as you know, driving becomes like autopilot in a way. So once I actually passed, I felt worse driving. But again, just put a podcast in. That's all you have to do.
And isn't it interesting that we kind of, like, so something people kind of often say to me is that they say, well, I don't know if I'll be able to recover because I have this thing happening in my life. So my job is a bit stressful, or I just had a kid, or moving house or something. And it's this mistaken idea that, like, that we can't recover from an anxiety-based condition if we're dealing with the normal day-to-day stresses of life. And it's actually the opposite. It's the opposite.
Exactly.
Like, what better way to completely keep your mind engaged away from DPDR than to have a toddler in the house who's demanding your attention 24/7? Like,
I think I'm sleep deprived now, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's difficult, but exactly. It's just everyday life. There's enough distractions out there. You don't need to go and do anything like miraculous, like travel the world, or don't go out buying. I remember thinking I needed like the new Xbox so I can play that like every minute of every day. No, you don't. Like you can buy an Xbox, but just don't obsess over, like, see it as a reward at the end of your night once you've been out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you don't need to go out and get anything crazy. Just everyday life is enough there.
For sure. So then getting back to normal, Peter.
Yeah.
So getting back to kind of just, okay, working in the bakery, taking care of Emily, getting your life back on track, socializing and all that stuff. How did that feel for you?
Yeah, like obviously it's like a weight been lifted off your shoulders. It's more just that you freed up space in your head and your brain that used to just be going round in circles. I think that's the biggest thing, like peace of mind. Like worth its weight in gold, isn't it? Like but at the same time you don't really notice much change because you're so busy. You're busy just with everyday tasks and that annoying person at work. Like it's just everything that life is. Like it gets in the way, which is what it should be doing. Just refocus.
Yeah. Peter, how was the DP manual helpful in your recovery?
Yeah, it was, I mean, invaluable to be honest. Like the first time I came across it, remember I was saying like I didn't quite believe it. And to be honest, I didn't really read it. I didn't look at it. I looked I looked at like the big ones, like the big like Just Distract and all that. And then that kept the full cycle going, and then I came back to it because I knew I had relief when I retracted. So I sat down and I actually read it and I looked at it and I was like, it's the penny drop. Like, get a grip, get out of this. You've been in this too long. It's not hard to get out of, even though it feels incredibly hard at the time. It's not hard. Do the things you like doing, but use it as a crutch. Like it's there to help you, and you don't need anything else. Nothing else matters. Google, like block yourself from Google. Like just do not do it. Use the DP manual, nothing else. That is all you need. Like no one else has a magic cure. There's no need for it. It's all within your power to get better.
Yeah, that's great to hear. I'm so happy it was helpful. So Peter, now that you've recovered, what's your day-to-day life like? And also, question that people always ask me, and I'm sure you probably asked me this at some stage as well, because I definitely asked it of other people. Is getting back to normal really getting back to normal?
So my day-to-day life, to be honest, I still keep like a schedule, like what I'm doing, because I think that helps, to be honest, because even before having DP, I wasn't, like I was saying, I wasn't in a good place. I didn't know where I was going in my life and etc. etc. I just felt really down and depressed. So just having a guide, like a chart saying like morning, afternoon, evening, and all the days split up. So I try and exercise at least 3 times a week. I'm looking after Emily a lot. I'm in the bakery, so I do early morning shifts in the bakery, which I like because it gets me up and out early. Even though every bone in my body, I do not want to get up at 5 in the morning, but that keeps me busy. And I've got my little side hustle of my Amazon business, so that keeps me busy as well. That keeps me ticking over. I don't do anything extravagant. Like my life's pretty boring. Yeah, like I try and see my friends as often as I can, but with a 2-year-old, it's quite difficult to be honest. Yeah, so I play five-a-sides as well. Not very good. It's another story. I used to be very good, but I'm aging.
And so is that.
So you were asking if it really feels like recovery. Well, yes, because you don't ask that. You weren't asking that before, were you? Like, am I like? It's just life. Like, you don't. Life is amazing, isn't it? Like, let's be honest, life is amazing. But if you think too much into it, it'll play with your mind. Like, look, what is it like the question of life? Like, what is life? Like, just don't. You just have to keep busy, and yeah, I'm back to normal. Like, nothing really changes. Nothing. There's not some extravagant like. Nothing extravagant happens. Like, it's just what it is. Your mindset changes. That's it. Like, your mind is shifted to not worry about that. That's it.
Yeah. Something you mentioned earlier, Peter, and I made a note of it. I wanted to mention again was you said that, and I know this because I know we did a couple of coaching sessions, and something that I remember was an issue for you was something you said earlier, which was I felt like I needed to understand it in order for it to get better.
That was a massive. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, so it was like I got to the stage where I knew what I had to do. Like, I knew the only way out was to keep busy, to forget about this. Like, but I had a little voice in my head that was going against me, saying, "You don't really know what this is. You don't fully grasp what depersonalization is.
Right.
Like, tell me now, tell me right now what it is," and I'd have to go over like symptom of anxiety, blah 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 blah. But every time you do that, you're just reminding yourself of what it is, and you don't have to like. It's like saying, it's like going over, why does your heart beat rapid? Like, you don't need to like another like symptom of anxiety. You don't need to do that. It's just you have to forget about that as well. Do what feels wrong. Don't answer, and the mental clarity like feels amazing, to be honest. Like, see, if you even if you do it for one day, not talk, like, just say to yourself, today I'm not talking back. Today I'm just not doing it, and that's the first day done. Because I would just be going round in a loop and a loop. Have to keep like at night. I'd get into bed and I'd literally. In fact, I remember in one of our training, in one of our calls, sorry, when I took up football again and I was defending a corner kick, and my brain was like, "You don't know what personalization is," so I had to go over it all while defending a corner kick at football. Like, I wonder what the coach would think of that. Like, it's mental talking about it, isn't it? Like, but that's where I was. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I sympathise with everyone going through it, because you think you're doing the right thing in your head. You think by going over it, it's just like any anxiety, to be honest. Like, you think by thinking about it, you think that you can overthink your way out. You can. You can. You have to just stop, basically.
Yeah. And it's something that I'm sure I would have said to you before, and I would have said to myself as well back in the day, was that, like, you know, when you keep questioning and you say, you know, what if this isn't it, or what if, you know, I need to understand it better. But the thing is that, like, you don't, and the reason you don't is because you do understand this. Like, you understand it top to bottom. You understand, like, by the time
it becomes an obsession, like, you become obsessed.
It becomes an obsession. And like, by the, you know, I was at a point where, like, I would, if somebody had asked me, you know, tell me about depersonalization, derealization, I could have talked for like hours about the condition, and I could have explained exactly why it happened. I could have gone through each one of these symptoms. I could have told you about, like, historical examples of it. I could have told you about celebrities who had it. I could have told you comorbidity of the symptom. I could have told you everything.
Yeah.
And I knew 100% that's what I had. And yet, this little voice that you mentioned would jump in and say, yeah, but what if it's something else though? What if that's not it? What if you've got a different version, like,
Yeah.
And it's the indulging that
yeah, exactly.
that keeps it going. And you do get into this, as you said, Peter, and well said as well, you get into this mistaken idea that you can think your way out of this.
Yeah.
And it feels so tempting to do that because there are certain issues and problems in life that warrant that, and that they can be figured out just by sitting on them, or even by actively kind of like going through the labyrinth of them. But that's not the case with anxiety. As I say in the book, like, these thoughts and feelings are the mental equivalent of sweating and heart palpitations.
Yeah.
You are not going to think your way out of sweating and heart palpitations and muscle tension. Because they don't respond to logic and reason. And in fact, it's the thinking about them, as with, particularly with heart palpitations, that causes them to persist. It's the hyper awareness of them. But a major part of recovery is understanding that, like, that little voice is going to be there. It's going to pop up and it's going to say, what if it's something else? What if you don't quite understand us? But your job in recovery is not to get into an argument with it. You don't need to win an argument with that voice. But what you do need to do is not engage with it. And you have to focus away from it. If it's there, do you know what? Let it be there. It's been there for long enough, and it hasn't hurt you. It hasn't killed you. It hasn't turned into anything worse. It's annoying. It's not pleasant, but let it be there, and do something else. And that's what demonstrates to your brain that it's actually not important. Yeah.
Definitely. And it's just going against what it's so tempting, isn't it? It's just sat there like on your shoulder, and it's like, and like, instead of just sitting there worrying about it, just go and do something else. Because I would just sit. I remember just specifically, like, I was driving down to Wales because that's where Carly's from, like, to see her family. And I remember, like, having these thoughts. And instead of going to do something else, I would just be like sweating and like my heart palpitations because I wasn't answering it, but I was like, oh my God. But even just deep breaths helps it, because that's the physical sensations. Nothing can be solved up here, but deep breaths get rid of the physical sensations.
Sure. And someone said this to me recently. I thought it was a really good way of thinking about it. But it often feels like the thoughts are different and the symptoms are different, and okay, maybe I've dealt with this particular take on it, but now there's this other thought, and that's really scaring the life out of me. And as you said, like, it's like it's on your shoulder and it's changing all the time. And what someone said to me recently was like, is that it's not changing, it's just put on a different t-shirt. So it's just it's this little like imp on your shoulder, and it's just trying on a different t-shirt to see if that'll get your attention.
Way to get in.
Yeah. And you know what? Let it try all the t-shirts on.
Yeah.
Let it, but actually, just but it's not your business anymore to turn around and have a chat with the little gremlin on your shoulder about the t-shirt it's wearing, because you did enough of that and it didn't go anywhere. Exactly. It was pointless. Peter, one more question for you. So there will be people watching the channel who will have gone through something very similar to you, maybe kind of would have happened around the same age as yourself, maybe in a similar situation of kind of it just had been triggered by a panic attack. What advice would you have for those people? If you were speaking to yourself back when you were 25-year-old Peter, what advice would you have for him and for them?
Yeah, so, I mean, you have to want it yourself. Like, you have to find it within you to get on the right track. And that track it may seem weird and go against like everything that you're brain wants you to do, which is researching and thinking about it. You have to keep busy. That is essentially it, and get your life back on track. It's just I can't help but laugh at it because of how horrible it was, but how easy it is to get out. You wouldn't think it would be so like you wouldn't think distracting would be the cure, but it is. And that is your only route out, and you have to do it. Keep yourself, like I was saying, keep yourself a log of what you're doing daily. Make sure you're exercising. Make sure you're keeping busy. Do everything that you want to do. Live your life as normal. And week by week, you'll feel better. And don't put a time frame on it. Just don't. And you'll get better a lot quicker than me. Don't go down this route of like the rabbit hole of researching. It leads nowhere. No drug is going to work. Nothing like that. It might temporarily help with anxiety, but the main goal, if your main goal is to get rid of dissociation and depersonalization, you have to keep busy, live your life as normal. Nothing else is going to work. No counselling, nothing. It is down to you to get better. And that's all I can really say. And you will get better.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said. Peter, it's been so lovely having you on the channel, man. Thank you for taking the time to share your story. On a personal note as well, it's just a joy for me to see you doing so well. I remember the first coaching session we did when I spoke to you back in the day, and I remember how much distress you were in. And
really even remember it, to be honest. I think it was just I was a shell of a man. I think like I was just
you were going through a very, very difficult time, but I recognize that that's exactly what I was going through back when I was 25, and what so many people go through it at some point in their lives. But it makes me so happy to see this. You've recovered, things are back on track, and that Emily has her dad, and that you're clearly enjoying fatherhood. And yeah,
I was going to give her the middle name Sean, but we'll wait till we have a boy.
Oh my God. I will absolutely go over for the christening, man. No bother, like. I will take you out on the town for that, like.
I'm to Glasgow.
But Peter, it's been so lovely having you on the channel, man. Thank you for your time. Thanks for sharing your experience. I know there's going to be people watching this who find it extremely valuable. So thank you again.
No problem. Thanks very much.
Yeah. Okay, man. All the best. Take care, and best of luck to Scotland in the Euros.
Oh, thanks very much. Cheers. We'll need it.
All right. Cheers, man. Take care. Bye bye.